Hey, it's Bryan, and I'm finally back in the garage with Project Sunny. It's been a while. Welcome back. Since our last episode, I welded up the new Z-panels that support the rear floor and cut out the old originals. And to be honest, I wasn't really happy with the way they turned out. The cut lines were really jagged, and the final repair probably wouldn't have looked very nice. I decided to ditch the first set altogether and just remake them from scratch. And since I'd already fitted those edge pieces to follow that messy contour, I went ahead and trimmed more of the original floor back, but with straight cut lines, just like I should have done the first time. The good news is the second go-around turned out so much better in every way. I went back and included the correct downturn flanges that made up to each of the wheel tubs, which were missing on the first effort. All in all, I'm much happier with what I've got now. And yes, I know this is all going to be covered with carpet anyway, but I still wanted the work underneath to stand on its own. In the meantime, I also had to figure out how to make up a new lip for the lower tailgate weather stripping. As you can see, the original piece essentially rusted away, leaving barely enough material for me to even get dimensions for the remake. Now, this piece is just short of 4 feet long, and it's made from 14 gauge steel. It's a pretty beefy piece of metal, and unfortunately the sheet metal brakes we have here in the shop aren't really up to the task of making precise bends on such heavy material. Not that we didn't try first. So I took some fresh material down to a local fab shop that has more industrial presses and had them bend up the new piece. And I couldn't have asked for better results. It turned out almost perfect and will definitely help restore a solid structure to the back of the truck. As you can see here, I've trimmed it up to fit perfectly where the old one was cut out. At this point, we also need to talk about the floor panel itself. I'd originally ordered one new floor for a Land Rover Discovery, which is nearly the same as the Range Rover's panel, but not quite. Comes up about 5.5 inches short, in fact, and all of it's at the rear. I initially made a filler panel to bridge the difference in length between the Disco and the Range Rover. And once again, after some deliberation, I wasn't really happy with that solution either. As you can see, there just isn't a lot of structure here. And this is the section of the floor that'll probably see the most use when I load or unload anything through the tailgate. Ultimately, I want the finished project to be cleanly executed and as correct as possible. I also want it to be as functional as it was originally designed. And this wasn't going to cut it, so here's what I did. I bit the bullet and ordered a second Discovery floor to make one proper length floor panel out of 2 slightly short ones. Using our mini metal saw, I trimmed off the first floor panel at the point where the radii start to form on these ridges. From here, I measured from the opposite end of the second panel to get the correct size for the new end piece. Let me tell you, this saw was an absolute monster. It cut through these corrugated floor panels effortlessly. These edges were so clean and straight. I never could have gotten these kinds of edges from a cutoff wheel. For now, I've just tacked the 2 halves together. I'll come back and weld up full seams later. As you can see here, the ridges of the 2 floor panels don't exactly line up perfectly. These are, after all, fairly inexpensive aftermarket pieces. I can do some fine-tuning with a hammer and dolly to make them align better. The important thing is the new floor now has structure all the way through. With the new floor panel tacked together for positioning, I cleaned up the underside of the original bodywork to prepare for welding in the rear cross member. I used a flap disc on the sheet metal underneath to remove any remaining paint, undercoating, and surface rust before treating the bare metal with fast etch. This acid-based rust treatment gets into areas where abrasives can't, leaving behind a rust-free surface with a protective phosphate coating. Afterwards, I sprayed self-etching weld-through primer on all the surfaces where the bodywork will be welded, ensuring there's at least a little bit of protection when the panels come together. And I did the same thing with the new floor edge pieces before tacking them into place. These inner grip panel clamps help me set a consistent gap between the panels while bringing the 2 surfaces level with each other. I'll say it again, these look so much better than the first effort. At this point, the rear body structure is a solid unit once again. The cross member is welded to the floor edges, and the opening for the main floor panel is the correct dimensions. From here, I can take the body off the frame to work underneath. But I'm going to leave the floor panel itself out for now. This will give me as much room as possible to work comfortably when I start welding and grinding other repairs once the body's on a rotisserie. I I can also work on perfecting the contour of the floor panel more easily while it's out of the truck. The two support brackets that run underneath the cargo floor still needed a little attention at this point, so they went back in the blast cabinet before I gave them a coat of rust encapsulator. These will end up getting spot welded to the floor panel once it goes back in, and will eventually be buried in rubberized undercoating, just like the factory did. For now, the only thing left to do back here is to go ahead and tack this weather stripping flange into place. Check back next time and we'll show you how that goes. Until then, if you want to know more about the tools we used here, check out eastwood.com.